Hi guys, welcome to the next Blender tutorial. My name's Ryan and we are about to get seriously composited as we do our next video, part of our Blender series. If you don't know where we are and what we're doing, stay tuned because I do sort of do not a mini catch up, but maybe you're looking at compositing only, that's fine, stay tuned. If you're wanting to know about the view layers or collections and that, you want to go check out my previous video, but this is a follow-up, part 2 of compositing, view layers and collections. And this basically this video is a tutorial showing those Blender fans out there, or the blenders, the Blender heads out there, a good compositing, or how the compositing works, or even how collections and view layers work. And what it does is that it helps to integrate your CG into your live action footage, because you know it's got to be photorealistic. All right, and thank you Blender and all the developers out there. Moment of silence just for all the hard work that they are doing, because man, I love Blender. I don't know about you, so moment of silence. Right, let's kick it off. So last week we looked at collections, we looked at view layers, and we created a main view layer. Let's open up Blender. So if you remember, we created over here our main layer, and we created our shadow layer, and as well as what we did is that then we sorted and arranged my different collections into what we want out of them. So some of them will only cast shadows, some of them will cast shadows and will do something called holdout. E.g., you can see that this silver ball over here, which is behind the crocodile, if you're looking at where my camera is, the crocodile, this object right over here is blocking out what part of my CG, which is the silver ball, is sitting behind the crocodile. That's called holdout. Again, if you don't know what I'm talking about, this you definitely want to go and check out the previous tutorial that I did on this. Okay, but now we are into the next tutorial, and so the first thing and I left this specifically because, the last tutorial was already, I was talking about view layers, collections, and setting the different settings for the collections, and how it works and all of that. And so I wanted to sort of introduce another layer that we're going to create, and that is our diffuse and glossy information out of our scene. So in other words, if you look at our 3D object in our scene, you will see that first of all, it's reflective. So which means that it's giving off glossy light, right? The light is coming off the HDRI, it's bouncing off the actual object, this guy right over here, this object, and then it is going towards the camera. That's glossy. And then diffuse information would be, bad example in this case, because our ball is like purely super reflective. Okay, only there's a small percentage of it, but let's say it wasn't. Let's say that the project that you're busy with is not reflective, and it's maybe, let's say maybe it's halfway. So that means you've got a half glossy and half diffused CG object, and we want to create a render pass out of that, because we're going to sit and manipulate and play around with it afterwards. Sort of like if you've ever done After Effects or any like effects in that, you want to adjust only specifically that light information. All right, so I'm creating a new view layer over here. New. All right, just follow along with what I'm doing. And this view layer, I'm going to call it diffuse / glossy. All right. It is very important that first of all, the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to hide, I believe this is my shadows layer. Gonna get rid of it. So I'm hiding that shadow layer, exactly like what I did in my main layer. Yep, there you go. I hit it. I hit it. No, I hit it. Now, there's another thing that we're going to be dealing with here. It's called diffuse lighting. And what diffuse lighting basically is, so let's say the light, let me go to this here. So direct lighting, yes. So what you've got direct lighting, which is what I've explained. The light source, whatever is your light source in your scene, the light is coming from it. It is hitting your CG object, and then it goes to the camera. That's how basically a lot of 3D programs deal with light. But then you get indirect, which I'm sure you would already guess what that is. The light is coming off the light source, it's hitting the object, it's hitting another object, and then going into the camera. And that's called reflections. That's where you see reflections. That is diffuse, which means that your object is giving off diffuse and glossy information. It's two different light types, diffuse and glossy. So what we need to do with this render pass specifically is that I want to, with this render pass, this render view layer, I want to get the diffuse and glossy information only off it. And that's simple. Alright, I'm going to go to my render passes. Over here you can see this tab over here, and I am going to be enabling under diffuse. I'm going to be enabling my indirect. If you've never been here before, well, this is the perfect tutorial for you. Under my diffuse, I'm going to be enabling my indirect and my color. I'm not going to worry about my direct lighting, because that's already going to come from my main view layer. And under glossy, I'm going to do the same with indirect. I'm not going to worry about my color for basically my render passes. Now, the cool thing is that I can actually have a look right now ahead of time what glossy and diffuse information I'm getting off, especially if you're using Blender. I think it was from 2.9 or 2.8, but this is Blender version 3.0.1. It matters because Blender, the guys are obviously in development with Blender version 3. So over here by your render view buttons over here, there's a drop down, and under your render passes, you can see right now I'm viewing the combined. But if I actually go to diffuse indirect, I can see the type of lighting information that I'm actually dealing with. There's your diffuse indirect, and then I'm going to look at my glossy indirect, and there's my glossy indirect. You can actually see it actually looks. You can see how it's the reflections that's coming off the other objects around. Now, another important thing that we need to be doing here is that in my 3D objects collection, I need to actually make sure that it is in indirect only, because yes, like I said, I'm already getting my direct information from the main layer. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on the 3D object, all right, because I don't need to see the direct information of this, and my view layer, and I'm going to say set to indirect only. All right, awesome. Then the other important thing that we need to pay attention to here is that sometimes, like my indirect object, so if you look at this alligator over here, there's two purposes for it. It is, number one, it is a shadow catcher. If I have any of my 3D objects go over them, it's going to, whatever shadow is casted on it, it's going to then overlay it over my alligators that are already there. But what I don't want these alligators doing is that within my diffuse or glossy, I'm going to be disabling the diffuse and the glossy. Basically, what you don't want is that these alligators are, for example, if you look here on my platform, it's actually casting a reflection, which I don't need, because in my original footage, the alligators that are currently there are already casting shadows, and they are already casting. So if I look here, you can see how they are already the original alligators I'm talking about. Let me just hide this for a second. They are already casting reflections, and they're already casting shadows. So I don't need them to again cast shadows and reflections. So with all I need to do is that under by selecting my alligators, all right, which I've done here already, I'm going to disable my diffuse and my glossy, and you can see that it's no longer going to cast any shadows, any glossiness, any of its reflections are not going to show up. Okay, and I need to do that with both of them over there. Okay, so if you have a look here, so let's go glossy indirect. So you'll see if I disable them within my diffuse and glossy layer, you'll actually see there's reflections there. When I remove the glossiness, it goes as well. Alright, just to show you here, because otherwise within my glossy view layer, it's actually going to show up there, which you don't want that, because within the original footage, my original live action footage, it's already doing that, so I don't need to worry about that. Okay, and then the other thing that I need to do, which is very important here, within my glossy and diffuse view layer, I don't need any glossy or any sorry, let's go back there. I don't need any of this information over here, which is the reflection of the sky reflecting off my actual platform, which means that I can actually disable this platform for this specific view layer. So you can see there's not much reflections and the glossy indirect, but you can see the diffuse indirect. We've got some information. Right, maybe in my case there might not be much, I might not contribute that much to it, but believe me, it's gonna, for whatever scene you're doing, it's going to contribute a heck of a lot. All right, so finally we get into a stage now where we are going to begin compositing. All right, for those compositing fans, woohoo! For those who don't know what I'm talking about, this is going to be very simple. Don't worry, it's not going to be difficult, because I know that when we see all of these nodes and stuff like that, we haven't gone that far. I haven't gone quite that far in Blender, and I'll be honest with you, I do battle sometimes. There was actually a Blender course that I actually took on Udemy to do with these nodes and your different textures. Well, okay, I suppose the textures, creating a texture and this compositing is something different. Maybe for some of you, you're like, what? Compositing? All right, this is where you are able to now start taking all those little render layers that we've already created, and we're going to start messing around. So I'm going to start from scratch just so we can get an understanding. I'm going to select all, I'm going to press X, I'm going to delete. Now what's important here is that we are going to first create our outputs, which is your composite output. And by the way, Shift A, okay, brings up this menu over here. And then I'm going to create a viewer. Now your viewer, your viewer node is what you see behind you. So as we're making alterations, you're going to see, oh yeah, by the way, before we go anywhere further, which is something that I didn't do in this, yes, in today's episode, you do need to render out, hit render, so that you can actually do a render on all of your view layers. So I'm going to hit render. I don't think I'm going to make you guys wait for this, because shame, this is going to be extremely difficult. Not difficult, this is going to be not a lot of fun for you guys. Okay, let's go back here. And I think what's happening is because of my compositing, it's just it's not going to actually, yeah, it's not going to render each layer. So I'm just going to go back there. Now there's another way to do it. So I can hit render now, and you'll see it's going to go through all my different passes. Okay, they did my main view layer. Now it's doing my shadows. You can see here the progress sitting at the bottom here. Okay, it's not doing too bad. And then after this, it's going to do my glossy view layer. And there's my glossy view layer. Okay. And then you can see it's almost like a final sort of effect of, yes, of what it looks like. Okay, so it's going to store those render values, and you'll see exactly why. So let's try that again. So we're going to delete, Shift A, I'm going to create my view layer just so that you know the important nodes that you need within compositing. So it's your view layer, that's this, and your compositing, which is your final. So when you hit render, that's what that node is for. Whatever you plug into there, it's going to render. Then what we need to do is we need to plug in our different inputs. So if you have your live action footage within different an image sequence, as in different pictures, you're going to add an image sequence and you're going to load that up in there. But I don't. I'm still sitting within it's in a movie format, so I'm going to say movie clip. Alright, and you can navigate around the compositing this window like you would do within your texturing window. So you can actually see it's already loaded up. That's pretty awesome. Now I believe it's shift click, command click, shift, command click. There you go. If I shift and command click a window, it's going to take it straight to your viewer. So whatever I'm working with, I don't have to pull a node to my view layer. I just shift, command click. Probably if you're in a PC, try control shift click. Right, so there you go. There's your image sequence. Okay, you can see how it updates. I think I should have moved that there. Anyway, moving right along, don't worry, we'll sort that out. You'll be fine. Undo. No, can't undo. Alright, so that's the first thing we need to do. The other thing we need to do is we need to scale this guy, because we need to scale it to render size. Alright, don't know if you saw what I did. I just searched there. I'll tell you now where it's under. Doesn't tell you. Some people know, others don't. Some guess. Let's see. I bet you it's under converter. Nope. Color. Nope. Filter. Probably missed it. Vector. Map. Distort. I know this one. It's scale. There you go. Okay. So you can find scale and say render size. Alright. Then yeah, I guess that's basically it. Now most people, okay, wait, let's do the next thing, right? So then we want to pull up our different view layers / render layers. So we're going to go input and render layer. Alright, watch, shift, command, click. So you can see now this is the node where we're going to get our different render layers. So there's our main layer, there's our shadow, and there's our diffuse and glossy. Right, so the first thing that I'm going to deal with here is basically our render layers. Now I know that often what people like to do is they like to just do a alpha over and Bobby's your uncle, and there you go, right? Alright, but first change your render layer to shadow. So what we like to do is, you can see there are your shadows in here, but let's say I want to increase this. Now this is the beauty about compositing. So I would like to pull in okay, this is why I just, there you go. But let's say I pull in an RGB curves. If I pull this down, you can see my shadows are not changing. It's not making a difference. So the best way for me to do this, alright, I'm going to delete this, is by adding in a color mix. Okay, I'm going to plug in into, first let's do alpha into factor, my image and my two images. I'm going to make the one black and the one white. And you can actually see now how we have our shadows that are sitting there, right? Then what I can do with that information now is now plug into a color ramp. And I can tighten up those black and white. See now how I can make it stronger, smaller, bigger. Now we can start adjusting our shadows. Pretty cool. You can give it more contrast by bringing the white and black together, and it also depends on where you bring them back together. See? Alright. Black being 0 and 1 being white, and in between are your midtones. So if you want to crunch it, in specific areas, you can play around and you can do that. The next thing that, okay, and then of course what I can do is then add in my color curves, and over here I can even mess around nicely with my shadows. Pretty cool. And then of course the last thing I'm going to do, and this is a node that we're going to use a lot, is the color node. All right, oh yeah, please forgive me, this first node over here, you need to set it to multiply. Or do I? Yes, I do, because there you go. All right, it's going to multiply that over. That's just for best control. So anyway, you can play around with that, and then with this mix node over here, also set to multiply, I can then plug in my background image, and there you can actually see my shadows over there. I can bring them down, make them a bit heavier if I want to, make them lighter. So you can play around with your shadows very nicely. Okay, cool. So there you go. We've added now in our shadows. Very nice. Thank you, Ryan. No problem. All right, but now we need to move on. Now we need to add in our other render layers. And the next one that we're going to look at now, I don't have to go and add another one. I can actually just go select this render layer here, Shift D, and I've got the next one. And the next one that we're going to mess around with is our Diffuse and Glossy. Now, if you remember, we created those different render passes for this specific view layer. Remember that? Well, here they are. They're sitting right over here. And Blender has a cool way of basically dealing, well, not a cool way, but this is how Blender deals with render passes. So basically, Blender deals with render passes like this. Okay, and you can check this on the Blender site if you're not sure. This picture is actually on there. Otherwise, yeah, here we go, take note. So it adds the diffuse direct and the diffuse indirect. So remember, we've got diffuse direct and diffuse indirect. It basically adds them together, and then it takes that and it multiplies it by the diffuse color. All right, does the same with the glossy and all the other passes as well. But the math, the way that it works with this, all right, if you do the diffuse and you know, it doesn't matter how you add them up together. You can, for example, you can multiply this, the diffuse color, with diffuse indirect, and then take that and plus it with the direct. It doesn't matter as long as this is the math rule that you're doing. Right, so that's what we're going to do, and you'll see exactly why we're going to do that. So I'm going to get in our favorite, in fact I'm just going to duplicate from here. I'm going to change this guy, yes, multiply, and I'm going to take the diffuse indirect and the diffuse color. We're going to multiply them together, remember, because of the rule that I set up. And then what I'm going to do is I am going to color mix that. On add. And I can then add that into with the shadow and what we've done, all this over here with the background image and the shadow. Shift Command click. All right, and so then I've got now my glossy and diffuse information added in. Then what I'm going to do is then I'm going to get another render layer, Shift D, and I'm going to simply just duplicate my color mix layer, take the glossy indirect, which we haven't done yet, and if you remember this, my indirect just needs to be added in to here, and I can add that in together there. Stay with me. And then the last thing that is now remaining within my compositing is my main layer. And guess what? That one is quite simple. And all I'm going to do is this. So coming here, main layer. See, I'm sure because I was recording in 4K, you saw exactly what I was doing there. And this, my friends, is now where you can just simply do our famous alpha over, and bada bing, alpha out into there. Yes, no, maybe not today, maybe did I? There you go. All right, convert pre-multiply, let's see if that helps. All right, so now there we've added our image together nicely. Now, why would we do what we're doing? Well, it's basically three different, our render broken up into three different layers, three different view layers. So something that I felt that I wanted to enhance, which I can do, is that technically there should be a reflection of my 3D object on this this marble platform, right? And I would be able to, using Shift Command Click, I would be able to pick up where out of, because it would be something out of my let's quickly go, my Diffuse and Glossy. And I would easily be able to just using Shift and Click, and there it is. That is the reflection that I'm looking for. So guess what I can do, right? I'm gonna Shift and Click here, and I actually want to enhance that. So I know it's my Glossy Indirect, so I'm going to add in that RGB curves, all right, on my Glossy Direct. And let's see if I push this up. There you go. Now I can see it more. I want to push it up quite a bit there. All right, you can even see how the reflections are reflecting. The other ones are also reflecting off there. And if I carry on throughout the line here, okay, cool, still there. I think we might need to enhance it a bit more. So you can see I can't see it there. So I'm going to try and push it up maybe over here as well. All right, let's have a look here. So if I push it up, but let's see if I do this. Yeah, okay, let's have a look at what it looks over here. And there you go, I can actually start seeing it. Let me see if I can control this all with 1 point. There you go. And now if you have a look, I can actually see my reflection there. And if I wanted to, I can add more realism, and I can even throw in a blur node. So it's slightly a bit blurry. That just makes it a bit more realistic. I'm gonna blur it so it looks more like a reflection. There it is. Right, and if I look at the final results, there you go. I now have enhanced my reflection. So that's an example right there. Guys, have yourself an awesome Blender experience. I hope that is, like I said, that blessed me hugely. And show me what you've been doing, guys. I don't know, send me a link to a Google Drive or something. Otherwise, there's my email. Send me an email. Show me the stuff you guys have been doing. If you've got any questions as well, then drop your questions as well. Cool, no problem. I'll answer them. Guys, until the next video, see you guys next week. And please subscribe to support what we're doing here. And also like this video because I know you liked it. I know you loved it, right? You loved it. Yeah. Okay, awesome. So see you guys next week. Cheerio.